God, I wish we had changed our Halloween celebration routine last year. For 3 years, since they were old enough, we did the same thing. Go out of town with my daughter's school friends. Last year we decided to change things up a bit and try a local Halloween ride. The girls are a little older now, so we thought we could amp up the scare factor. We live in Yorkshire, England, and an estate near us puts on an event every year. There's a walk through a spooky forest, a haunted maze, pumpkin carving, and all sorts of other fun activities. But the highlight is the ghost tour. The house has a long and bloody history. Murders, assassinations, and suicides have all taken place here. Actors will guide you through the house and grounds to bring the macabre events to life. Tickets are expensive and sold in limited quantities, so we were looking forward to this event. At this time of year, darkness falls by 5 o'clock in the evening. The day was gloomy and miserable, raining and windy. A small path leads you to an abandoned and unattractive gatehouse with carved stone gargoyles and a tall wrought iron fence with spikes. The path leads to the house through a dark and gloomy patch of woodland, and this is where you first see the manor house. A grim sentinel stands lonely on the hill. A monolith of grey stone, Lord of all, he watches from his seclusion. Its ghostly beauty drives people to murder and other horrors. Scarecrows were set up along the road, each one telling Halloweeners its fate, each head carved and illuminated by increasingly creepy lanterns. Let me say right off the bat that we're used to the sight of jack-o'-lanterns, the symbol of candy and fun. But here, on a bleak Yorkshire slope, they inspired primal fear. Their grinning faces were alive in the flickering candlelight. During the short ride through the forest, the weather had changed dramatically. The eerie silence was replaced by gusts of wind and, as is often the case at this time of year, the ground gave up its moisture, forming a thick fog that covered the ground, stretched out and began to rise through the trees and outbuildings. The children sat in uncharacteristic silence, and I wondered if it was too much for 7 and 5-year-olds, and for me too. Once we got to the parking lot, however, the mood changed. People were walking around in costume and the grounds glowed with the warm light of hundreds of pumpkin lanterns. We got out of the car and immediately joined the crowd. I'm a traditionalist, so every year is a zombie costume for me. I say costume, but really all I do is cut up the clothes that my increasing waistline has made too tight and liberally sprinkle them with fake blood. The girls dressed up in devil/witch and Elsa costumes with face paint. My daughters have eclectic tastes and are overconfident to be confident. They got that from their mother. It was worth the price of the ticket. The girls carved pumpkins and the haunted maze was a lot of fun. Everyone enjoyed the pork roast and hot-baked cinnamon apples. The night went great and everyone gathered for the haunted walk. I was skeptical before the event, but I have to say that being here on a foggy night in such a dark place really enhanced the experience. The actors were great. Sometimes these things are overplayed, but they really pulled it off. The stories were gripping and creepy in equal measure. People really can do the most horrible things to each other. We were already out of the house and heading for the hangar when my oldest whispered those fateful words that all parents dread when heading out for a walk. "Daddy, I need to poop." There was no going back to the house. It was too far away and we would miss the rest of the excursion. We quickly headed into the thicket of trees on the side of the path. We could easily catch up with the group. We walked only a short distance, just long enough to get out of sight. It was dark and confusing. I used my cell phone as a flashlight and its meager light allowed us to navigate. We finished, cleaned ourselves up. Wet wipes are a parent's best friend, and were just about to head back to the group when I heard crying. It was very close, a little farther into the woods. I took my daughter's hand. "We should see what it is, in case someone needs help." Despite the oppressive thickets, navigating the noise was easy, and we came to an arched gate, part of an old crumbling wall. The gate itself hung crookedly on one of 3 hinges. It was a small cemetery, presumably for family members who had lived on the estate in earlier times. The tombstones were ancient and rested, hag-like, at various angles where the ground had shifted and sagged over the years. The fog was so thick that it enveloped our feet as we walked. At the far end we saw a small figure behind one of the headstones. It was small, of plain stone, no inscription, no name engraved in honor of the corpse. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked. The figure turned around. It was a little girl, about my daughter's age. Her costume was gorgeous, old-fashioned clothes, probably from the 1960s. But it was all about the makeup. Her skin was marble white, her eyes ringed with black, and blood-red streaks of tears ran down her cheeks. There was an incredibly realistic cut on her throat, from which artificial blood flowed in trickles. She didn't say anything back. "Is your mom or dad here?" I asked again. "Nothing." She just stared at the floor. I noticed she was wearing one of the bracelets we all got on the road. It had a place on it where you could write down her parents' phone number for just such an occasion. "What's your name, baby girl?" Still no answer. "Can I see your bracelet please, sweetie? Maybe I can call your parents?" She raised her hand. Her skin was icy to the touch as I lifted it to get a good look at the number. Poor thing. I took off my jacket and threw it over her, dialing the number. It was a landline number, which worried me. Her parents would have to be home to answer the phone, which was impossible if they were staying here overnight. The phone rang 3 times.
"Hello?"
An elderly voice squeaked. "Grandpa maybe?" The line was jagged and bad. Reception in this remote place wasn't very good. "Hello, I found a little girl who was lost. This number was on her bracelet. Don't you have a daughter or granddaughter missing?" I asked.
"I don't have a daughter, I don't have children."
He replied. "She's about 6 or 7 years old, dressed for Halloween. Vintage 60s clothes, neck split." There was a long pause. I thought he hadn't heard me, and I was about to repeat myself when he spoke.
"I didn't kill. It was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen this way.
"Sir, is this your child?"
She looked so perfect. I wanted her to be mine, but then she struggled. "How did you know it was me? All these years, how did you find me now?"
I stood in stunned silence, my mind working at maximum capacity. I didn't realize what was happening, what I was hearing. Suddenly, from behind us in the clearing came the defiant hooting of an owl and the flapping of wings. I turned, distracted for a moment, and when I turned around, the girl was gone. My coat was lying on a gravestone. Written on the previously unmarked stone in fresh blood was the name Sally Turnbull. In shock, I didn't immediately realize that my phone was dead. For a few minutes I searched for the girl in a panic and finally admitted defeat. I took a picture of the headstone, then picked up my daughter and ran back to find the main group. Every time I tried to dial the man's number, the phone gave a ready tone, as if the phone was off the hook. The evening was coming to an end anyway, so I didn't immediately tell my wife about the incident in the car. My wife typed Sally Turnbull's name into Google and found an article in the local newspaper, published several years ago, about the tragic and unsolved case of 6-year-old Sally, who went missing in 1967. We decided to call the police, hoping it was all an elaborate Halloween prank. They didn't arrive until the next morning. Halloween is a busy night for the police. They took statements, and I could see the annoyed expression on their faces when I pulled out a picture of an unmarked headstone from my phone. There was no name written on it. They asked my daughter what was wrong, but it didn't help. She told them that she and her daddy were in the woods to go to the bathroom, but she didn't hear the crying that I heard. She said she didn't see the girl in the private cemetery, only her father looking at the headstone before putting his jacket on it. The cops lectured me about wasting my time, but I insisted they write down the number I dialed and agreed to follow them. I thought they were playing a joke on me until 3 weeks later when I got a call from an office staff member who was visiting us. She said they had managed to establish that the number I had dialed belonged to Mr. Brian Carter, a retired widower who lived a couple of villages away. The police went to his house but, receiving no answer and oriented by the strong odor emanating from the small cottage, broke in. Brian was found hanged in the living room. A telephone lay beside him, beeping continuously, its receiver lying on the floor. He had written 2 words in his notebook, "I'm sorry," and the police put the time of his death within an hour of the phone call I had made to him that Halloween night.